So good afternoon. Indeed, I'm going to speak about the Single Digital Gateway. As some of you might know, it's a regulation that we proposed last year on which we are very proud to say that we reached a political agreement just a few weeks ago. So I'm going to try to explain to you what it is about and what kind of interoperability questions it raises. First of all, regarding the overall objective of the gateway, the idea is to make it easier for both citizens and businesses who want to go to another member state, to live, to work, or to do business, to, on the one hand, access all the information that they need on the rights that they have and on the rules that apply to them, then to facilitate the handling of the paperwork that is related with it, and finally, to make it easier for them to access a number of assistance services in case there is a problem. But the first step that the user is encountering when he's going to another member state, he's looking for information on the rules that apply to them. So that's the first pillar of our initiative, making sure that citizens and businesses have access online to all the information they need. What does that mean? In the frame of the regulation, what we are proposing is, first of all, that the information is sufficiently available. Today, there is indeed already a lot of information on European or national websites, but sometimes there are gaps in the information that is provided, or it's not updated. So that's why we're asking member states to make sure, on the one hand, that they provide sufficiently comprehensive information on a wide range of domains within the single market, like working, education, starting a business. We have also put in place a number of quality criteria, like keeping the information up to date, or making sure that it comprises a number of information fields that we have specified in the regulation. And we also ask member states to translate this information so that people from other member states can also understand it. But another issue that we wanted to address is the findability of this information. Because although it's available quite widely on a number of websites, sometimes it's difficult to find where it stays. So that's why what we proposed is to create a search facility that will be embedded in the Europe portal. So the user will be able to type in this search facility the kind of information he needs, like here, open an enterprise for lamps in Malta. And he will get a list of results coming from both European and national websites, but only public authorities' websites, meaning that the information is really reliable. Then after getting this information, for instance, knowing that you can access this or this study grant, maybe you want to be able to also handle the corresponding paperwork online. And that's the second pillar of the initiative. It's about making sure that users can access online a wide range of administrative procedures. So on the one hand, it means that we're asking member states who already provide a number of administrative procedures online to make sure that these are also available for foreign users. And on the other hand, we have listed in the regulation 21 procedures, which we think are the most frequently used both by citizens and businesses. You can see some of them at the screen. And for these 21 procedures, member states will have 5 years to provide them online. But also to make sure that any evidence that is required in the frame of these procedures can also be submitted online. So we have 3 ways to do that. Either the user has already received a document in electronic format with an e-seal, then it's not a problem, he just sends it to the authority and it can be considered as authentic. Then the second case is the case where the user has the evidence, but only in paper formats. So in this case, we would expect that he could take a picture or scan the documents, submit it to the authority that is handling the procedure, and then via the IMI, Internal Market Information System, the authority, if it has a doubt, would be able to check with the authority who issued the evidence whether it is valid. The last aspect, the last possibility is one that we discussed a lot this morning already. It's the implementation of the once-only principle. So via the regulation, we are asking member states to make sure that for all the 21 procedures that are listed in the annex to our regulation, as well as for all the procedures covered by the Services Directive, the Public Procurement Directives, and the Professional Qualifications Directives, the users have the possibility to ask the authority to make use of the once-only principle. The third aspect is about assistance services. In case you don't find any information or you have a problem with the procedure, then there is a wide range of assistance services that you can ask for help, like Solvit, your Europe Advice, EURES. And in order to facilitate it for the user to access these assistance services, what we have in mind is to provide them with what we call a common assistance finder, which is a kind of search facility that would guide the user towards the exact assistance service that is the most suited to its needs. Now, that's what's in the regulation. All of this will require the development of a number of IT tools. So I won't go in detail about everything that's on the screen, but this is just to give you an overview of the different types of tools that we have in mind. So, first of all, we are going to develop a number of user interfaces through which the citizens or businesses can, on the one hand, get access to all the information, procedures, and assistance services that they need, but also where they can provide some feedback so that then we can monitor the quality of all these services. Then there's a second type of IT tools. It's a back-office dashboard that will be required to make sure that, for instance, the search facility can work. So here we'll need to have a repository with all the links of the websites that are part of the gateway. We'll need some databases where we store statistics and feedback information, and that will need to interact with the user interface. On the national level, there will also be a need for interaction with this back-office dashboard. On the one hand, because we're asking member states to provide the links towards this repository of link, but also because we want to make sure that we have a complete overview of the statistics and the feedback data that is collected on the websites that are part of the gateway. So they will have to provide this information to the dashboard. And then the last aspect is between member states. So I already mentioned we are putting in place the once-only principle. We'll also ask our colleagues working on the internal market information system to make sure that the SDG can also be supported by AMI. And this will require a number of exchanges between the member states. So of course, all these exchanges are handling data, so it might raise a number of interoperability questions on which we are looking at the time being. The first type of interoperability questions concerns once only. So here I won't go into many details. I think it was extremely well described this morning already by the speaker from TOP, that we need common data elements, we need a discovery service to know where the evidence is located. But beyond once only, we also have to address the way we're asking member states to provide links towards this back-office dashboard, the repository of links. So this can be done manually. But some member states have also raised interest in the idea of a common data model that could be used to map different data models that already exist at the national level in order to try to automatize a bit the process. And for this, we're looking, for instance, into the possible use of the CPSV. Regarding feedback and statistics, here again, member states have to provide us with some data. They have already a number of feedback tools that are available on their websites. And that means that if we want to have a complete overview, we'll need to address the question of interoperability between the back office dashboard and all these existing tools. We know some of them use BWIC, some of them use Google Analytics. For the statistics, for the feedback, it's a similar question. So we'll have to define good data categories and indicators for that purpose. And the last aspect on which interoperability questions might arise is in the use of IMI. Here it's slightly easier because the system is already in place. There is already a directory of all the authorities that are connected to IMI. There are already a number of pre-translated questions and answers. So we'll just have to complete that with a module for addressing the procedures that are not yet covered by IMI. So I mentioned at the beginning that we just reached a political agreement on the file. So that means the Council and the Parliament agreed on a final text. Right now we are launching the process of the translations, which makes us expect that by the autumn there should be a formal adoption of the regulation. Then to simplify a bit, the deadline for implementation are 2 years, so by 2020 for all what concerns information and assistance services. And then for what concerns the digitalization of the procedures and the implementation of the once-only system, member states will have up to 5 years to put that in place. So on our side, we're already beginning to work on the development of the IT tools. We have some specific studies looking at the different interoperability questions I just mentioned. We have also a pilot ongoing on the search facility. And in this whole process, of course, we want to make sure to involve all the relevant parties. So first of all, regarding the member states, we'll ask member states to nominate each one national coordinator, and we'll have a group of national coordinators that will gather regularly to make sure that we can exchange best practices and see whether we can provide some support for the implementation. Within the Commission, we'll have some work to do as well because there's also a number of information and assistance services that are provided by colleagues in different DGs. So we'll have a specific inter-service group to make sure that we handle that together. And then we also want to make sure to involve stakeholders as much as possible in this process. So we'll put in place a number of stakeholder groups to gather feedback regularly while we are developing the different IT tools. If you have any questions.